Hi, and welcome to Month of Marketing. This is the third session in the 90-day marketing plan stream, and this one is called Prospect Map, which is it's about your guide to finding new clients. So thanks for coming along today. I'll get started in just a second. Bit of housekeeping. First of all, the session is being recorded, and we'll send that out after it finishes, so we'll hopefully get that out later today, if not tomorrow at the latest. And also the slides are in the admin panel to download there as well as a PDF, but we will send those out in the email with the recording as well. Also, if you have any technical issues, you can use the question window to ask Anthea, and she will endeavor to sort those out for you. And also, if you have any questions for me about any aspect of what we talk about today, feel free to fire those into the questions window, and I'll stick around at the end of the session today, and we'll do a bit of a Q&A. Right, so let's get into it. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about me. I'm the founder and CEO of Biz Inc. I've been working for over 15 years in online business, but since 2010 exclusively with accountants and bookkeepers. And Biz Inc., our goal is to help busy accountants and bookkeepers like you grow using online marketing. And we do that with firms across the English-speaking world, US, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, and a few other places as well. So before we get into creating your prospect map, I just wanted to do a quick recap on the other two sessions and underline the reasons for what I'm talking about. So the first reason I wanted to run this session on creating a 90-day marketing plan is this statistic on the screen here that we surveyed over 400 firms earlier this year across the globe, so a pretty big sample, and 68% didn't have a marketing plan. So we're going to make that report on those on that survey available to you very soon. But there's clearly a need for a lot of you guys to have a marketing plan. And the second reason is, and you've probably heard me say this a few times if you come to the other sessions, is that if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody. And in other words, if you don't have focus in your marketing, it just doesn't really work. Actually, I was at XeroCon in Australia last week and caught up with one of Biz Inc.'s clients. And if you've been to an accounting or bookkeeping conference lately, you'll know that everyone is talking about niching or specializing your firm. And he was sort of asking me, do we really need to do that? And I said, look, no, I don't think you need to niche your whole firm. But from my point of view, you must niche your marketing, because once you have a niche or focus to your marketing, it becomes not only more powerful but also a lot easier, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, and through this whole stream. It's easier because once you've picked a niche to market to, you can really focus, and that means you won't be focusing on or getting distracted by less profitable activities. Biz Inc. helps accountants and bookkeepers, so we don't pay any attention to lawyers, financial planners, any other types of business. We're completely focused on accountants and bookkeepers. And it's also easier because once you have focus, you know where to find your prospects. You're not looking all over your city or your region or whatever for leads, because you know who you're targeting, so you can work out where they are. That's exactly what we're going to be dealing with today in creating the prospect map. And once you know where they are, then that's going to give you a big clue on how you should talk to them. In other words, what marketing you should actually do, and that's what we're going to cover in the final session next week. And like I said, niching your marketing also makes it much more powerful, because if you truly understood who your prospect is and what their pain points are, using the system that we went through in the first couple of sessions, and you also offer solutions to those problems, your appeal to that person is going to be really, really strong. and compare that to the weak appeal of just trying to market generalized services to all types of small businesses. So the last two sessions, what we covered, like what I've just talked about there, marketing to everybody is marketing to nobody. And the answer to that is to work out who is your ideal prospect. And we went through that, through using the workbook to work out who that would be. And obviously understanding their pain points as well is really, really important. The more we understand those, the more we can talk to those, the more powerful our marketing becomes. And then we also looked at, how are you different? So to stand out from the other people in your market, we looked at that unique selling point or USP. So now what we're going to look at is, we understand all of those kind of aspects of our prospects. Now we want to start going, okay, where are those people? And how do we start talking to them, actually doing some marketing? And I'm just going to reiterate my simple definition of marketing, which is, who are your customers? Where are they? And then you go and talk to them. It's as simple as that. I mean, obviously there's a lot in that, but it's no more complicated to that, and we often get sidetracked, but that's all marketing comes down to. And what we've covered so far in the first two sessions, who are your customers? Like, who's that ideal prospect? And today we're going to cover, where are they? That's going to be the prospect map. Next week we're going to actually get into going out. The rubber will hit the road, and we'll start talking to them. So today, prospect map. This is about working out where your prospects hang out. Because to get anywhere, you need direction, you need a map, you need a guide, and that's what this part of the plan is going to be. And so to build this prospect map, we're going to have a think about all the places on and offline that your prospects hang out, and then once we know where they hang out, we can work out the best way to get our messages in front of them. And the thing I like about this part, look, it's pretty straightforward, as you'll see, and it's a lot of fun to go through and create. You don't need any special marketing skills to do any of this. So let's go forward and get into it. So like I said, we're going to look at offline and online places that your prospects hang out. So you might have your workbook there in front of you. We'll send that out again if you haven't, but that will guide you through what I'm talking about today, and you can add these places where people are hanging out in there. So look, we've covered in the first couple of sessions the really kind of important details about your prospects. Here's where we add some more details and really flesh out the kind of the profile of these people and where they're actually located. So where they're located, first of all, we're going to want to know where they're physically located. I'm going to guess that most of you are local businesses. Some of you might have a wider reach, nationally, possibly even internationally, which is possible if you have a focus or a niche, because then it definitely broadens that scope out, and you can offer that service. You're not limited by geography in the same way, but I think it's really important to physically know where prospects are. You're also going to want to know, what their contact details are, and that's one of the best things about bringing this focus to your marketing is, once we say, okay, we're focusing on, I'm going to look at trades or construction businesses in a minute as an example. We can find some of those places, things like trade directories that have their contact details in them, and it could even be, say you focused on retail businesses, they're in your high street, or it could be like cafes or restaurants. So we can physically locate them. We can even walk in the door and talk to them. But you're going to want to record as much of this information as you can and put that into your CRM or practice management software. We're basically building a marketing database here. Another place where you can get in front of people is obviously events and conferences. And look, we're obviously in a very kind of high-tech age, but that means actually that high touch, the face-to-face, the personal meeting has even more value. So I don't know who you've picked as your ideal prospect, but what you're going to be thinking about is is there an event? Is there a conference for these guys? And maybe if there isn't, you could consider putting on an event yourself, because there's not much that's more powerful than actually getting in front of people and talking to them. And one of the other offline places that you might think about, I mean, I guess this straddles online as well, but is the professional bodies and associations. If somebody, if you're using my example again of like trades or construction businesses, a lot of those people will belong to professional bodies. That means that you can maybe find their contact details, or you could talk to that body, maybe make a partnership arrangement, which is going to get you in front of quite a volume of those right type of prospects that you're going after. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. This is an example. I mentioned that I was at XeroCon in Melbourne last week. While it's always nice to visit Melbourne, great city if you've not been there, and find out, go to a conference, find out about the latest in cloud technology. The main reason, for me to go there, being the CEO of Biz Inc., is that there are over 2,000 accountants and bookkeepers all there in one place for 2 days. So my prospect map, if I want to get in front of my prospects and even clients, I've actually just noticed one of my clients in the bottom left corner. I know they're all going to be there, and so it's a great place to do that face-to-face. And added to that, at a conference, there are also industry partners who you could, industry companies who you could maybe strike partnership agreements with. So, for example, like two of Biz Inc.'s partners, Practice Ignition and Spotlight Reporting. We do a lot of co-marketing together. Trent from Practice Ignition will be at the session tomorrow. The first place that I met those guys was at conferences, and it's developed into something from there. So is there a conference for your niche that you could attend, meet not just prospects but also partners? And if there isn't a conference or an event, maybe you could consider putting on an event. Quite an inexpensive thing to do. It could be a very local thing, could be very small at first. Definitely something worth looking at. So just wanted to do another example quickly, which is a niche that I know many of you, or many accounting and bookkeeping firms target, is what I'd call like trades or construction businesses. And so, if I was applying the prospect map system to that, here's a few ways offline that you could get in front of those kind of business owners. So the first thing would be like, what conferences could you attend? So quick Google search. I found something called Build Expo. It's on all of these cities around the world. They get thousands of builders, architects, developers, contractors attend this event, which is free to go to as a delegate. So for the cost of a train or bus or plane ticket and a hotel, you could go along to this event, or maybe it's in your city and you're lucky. So not only can you get in front of potentially thousands of the right type of prospects if you're going for that niche, there are also going to be hundreds of exhibitors there, who you could maybe partner with, and then leverage their database to get in front of more businesses. Like I said, if if there isn't a conference for the kind of prospect you're going after, what about putting you on your own event? Here's a firm running an event that's just for trade businesses in Queensland, in Australia. It was just a quick Google. That was, one event for tradies, as they're called in Australia, right there. And look, if there's a lot of construction work going on in your area, certainly is in mine at the moment, why not just go along to the building site, give out some flyers. If you were doing your own event, you could invite them to that. There's very little cost or risk for doing that, potentially quite a lot of reward. And then, like I mentioned, trade associations. Look, there's obviously hundreds of those out there for all kinds of different things. For the example I'm using here, it's just master builders, master electricians, that there's all kinds of different trade associations that you could talk to and maybe advertise in their trade journal, on their website. Maybe they have a directory. There's very little to lose in talking to them. So there's some of the offline things that you could do. They're obviously very dependent on the type of prospect that you're aiming at. We move to the online. Now, I think this is one area where the prospect map really, really helps. When we've been doing this with firms we're working with, they found this to give a lot of clarity to their online marketing, because we all know that online is a massive marketing opportunity, but it's so big an opportunity that knowing where to start is really a challenge. And the benefit then of having the focus plan and a prospect map is that we can cut through all that noise online and then only be in the places where our prospects are hanging out. Because someone might tell you that Facebook marketing is incredible, that's where it's at right now, but if none of your prospects are on there, it's pointless being there. So what are some of the things that you can do? Well, email is one of the first things that I would always look at. Pretty much every business owner has an email address. I mean, in fact, I'd be pretty worried about one that didn't in terms of working with them. So it's something that, whereas like I say, Facebook, not everyone's there, or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, email, we can assume that everybody's got an email address. And that means that we can communicate to them using email. And email marketing, one of the most effective forms of online marketing, outperforms pretty much everything else. Returns about $37 for every dollar spent. Incredibly good return on investment when it's done right. So what we'll be looking to do is build up a database of emails. And so there are lots of ways to do that, going back to things like the trade organizations. Some of those will have emails on them, and you can just find people's websites. We were trying to build up a list of email addresses and get that into your CRM or your email marketing software. And one of the places that a lot of people focus online, we're always asked about search engines, search engine optimization, or SEO. So I'm not saying this won't work for you. Maybe if we know the pain points of our prospect, they might be searching for some stuff online using Google. But I think that this idea of being top of Google is probably overrated for the return it will get you a lot of the time. For compliance type services, it will work well, but the power of having a niche or a focus is probably that a lot of the businesses you'd be targeting wouldn't expect there to be an accountant or bookkeeper who specialized in just their industry. And I don't think they're searching for it. I don't think there's people out there searching accountants for builders. We've done research on this, there isn't. So a I would say search engines, maybe have a look at it, but I would deprioritize that in my prospect map. Social media really is the place where you can really get in front of people online. And what we want to do here is work out the platforms, social media platforms that our prospects are using. Because not only will that enable us to get in front of them, we can also learn a lot about them in terms of what content they like, things like that. What are they talking about? Because that's going to really help us when we come to craft our marketing messages. So we've got to decide which are the right platforms to be on. If we're using my example that I keep running with of like a building business, they're probably not going to be on LinkedIn. More likely to be on Facebook. Whereas if we were targeting lawyers, I would probably choose LinkedIn over Facebook. So just understanding a bit more about the prospect and where they hang out, and you can do a lot of this. If you don't know it, you can do a lot of it with desk-based research. So do a bit of stalking, find out where your prospects are, what they're doing on social media, and then you can see in the workbook, you can start to fill in, what groups they're in. So Facebook has groups, LinkedIn has groups. You can join some of those groups, and don't look at it as like traditional advertising. We're going to come to the marketing tactics next week, but don't just join the groups and start kind of basically spamming them and trying to sell. It's about sort of trying to get to know them, taking part in the conversations, and it's kind of selling without selling. We'll cover that stuff next week, but by all means, join some of these groups, and I'll show you a few examples of them just shortly. So what groups are they in? Who are they following? That's going to tell you a lot about them. Who are they influenced by? If people are following certain people in the industry, what content are they pushing out? What's being liked and shared? And that's going to show as well. That's the kind of content that we should be creating when we market to them. So as much as you can get here, put as much information into that workbook as you can. The richer the data we have about our prospects, the better that's going to be when we start trying to market to them. The final thing I'd be listing down is maybe an extension of that research you're doing through social media would be to go, what are the websites that either our prospects like or can be found on? That's gonna give us a bit of help there, and it could even be that some of those websites are going to be places which you would want to advertise on. So example here of what I've just been talking about, online groups, that kind of thing. Now I just started Googling groups for trade businesses. This one came up. So this is a Facebook group for tradespeople in Mackay in Australia. So Mackay's population is only 85,000, but there are over 5,000 people in this group, which is for labourers and tradespeople to get work. Now, maybe not all of them are your ideal prospect, but that's a pretty big pretty big group you could get into, which is free to join, and potentially you can offer your services on there. It's a buy and sell group, so you could probably be quite commercial about it. Like I can tell you, there's thousands and thousands of groups out there for every niche and industry you could imagine. There are groups like this, both on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. So, I looked up architects groups. Here's one, the London Architecture Network, almost 20,000 people in that one. And this stuff takes just a few minutes of desk-based research to find these groups. So you've got these huge resources which are free to join, which have got prospects of all different stripes in there. And these are two big-ish groups, but small doesn't always mean bad. A very focused local group can be much more engaged than a big group. And you'll probably find that the groups on LinkedIn, there's not that much engagement. There's some really big groups on there. The engagement can be quite low. Facebook, you know, you see some huge groups on there too, but I tend to find that the groups on Facebook, you see more interaction, more engagement, and that's better for you. So yeah, just as this probably illustrates a little bit, probably more professionals are active on LinkedIn. Facebook, certainly though, that's gaining traction across all sectors. It's just consolidating its position as the most popular social network and spreading into business a lot more. Final example, I'm going to give you an online place to get to find people. So using my example of trades businesses, this is a New Zealand website, No Cowboys, which is basically a trades directory, trade database. And you can find the contact details of thousands of different businesses in here. And probably get asked the question, is that spam to contact somebody? Not if they publish the details on a website, you're legally allowed to contact them if it's something that's relevant to their business, which this would be. You can't just go and sign them up to your newsletter or something like that, but if you contact them with a relevant offer, that's okay. So hopefully you can see now, once you're starting to understand where your prospects are, then the tactics that you're going to use to get in front of them become far more obvious. If your audience is maybe quite young and predominantly online, then you're not going to want to use, say, direct mail, which still works. I was talking to a business that markets to dentists, and direct mail is the main way he can get people to come to events. So there's no marketing tactic. Well, I mean, within reason, all the sensible marketing tactics will work, but it's about understanding the tactics that are going to that your prospects will respond to. So maybe if you have an older audience, things like calling or direct mail could work well. It's just all about understanding their preferences. So basically, we fit the tactics to your ideal prospect, not the other way around. I do see that sometimes if people go, I want to do SEO, I want to do social media, without thinking, is that the right way to actually get in front of prospects? And that's what we're going to be looking at in the final session, is turning all of this stuff into the 90-day plan. So we've got our ideal prospect, we know where they hang out. Now we're going to work out what those tactics are and plan them out for 90 days. So hopefully you can see that's been a pretty straightforward part of this plan. It's something you can keep going back to and refining as you know more and more about your prospect. But to sum things up, you need a prospect map to lead you to your prospects. Without that, you're still kind of susceptible to doing the kind of very scattergun approach that we often see. So what we're trying to do is work out where they hang out, both online and offline. Because once we know that, that's going to tell us how we market to those people. It's going to define our marketing tactics. So yeah, pretty short and sweet session. I don't think we need to go over it in too much more detail because it's all there in the workbook. You kind of need to take that away and look at how that reflects, how that kind of rolls out for your ideal prospect. I'm going to stick around now to answer some questions. We've got a busy week this week in Month of Marketing. We've got a session every day now. So tomorrow, I'm really pleased that we've got along Trent McLaren from Practice Ignition. And we're going to do a Q&A on selling for accountants and bookkeepers. So we did a similar session to this last year, and I think I'm right in saying it was the best attended Month of Marketing session. Trent's an awesome presenter, so it'd be great to have him along. You can see the times there on the screen. You're already registered for that, so you'll get a reminder. You might probably already just had one for the session tomorrow from GoToMeeting, and we'll send another one an hour before. So I'm going to answer your questions now. If you need marketing support, you can join BizInc's Facebook group. The address is there on the screen. Free to join, and we'd love to see you in there. And also you can, we've got a bunch of prizes happening with Manta Marketing. You can win free coaching from the Revolutionary Firm. We're giving away a website and some blogs. Go to mantamarketing.com/prizes and check that out. I'm going to stick around now. I think Anthony's going to come back online and answer any questions that you have. So if you've got to dash away now, thanks for coming along. But if not, please fire your questions into the question window and I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt. We do have some questions coming in now. We got one from Linda. When you were speaking about those events, the industry events, do you recommend exhibiting? Do you find that worthwhile?
Yeah, it depends. I think if you need to make instant sales, exhibiting probably isn't the way to go. So if you go, oh, it's going to cost me $5,000 and I need to sell, X, I need to get X number of clients to do that, tends to be more of a slow burn. That's what I've always found is, people probably, not just going to come and sort of sign up on the day. Might be wrong, but that would be my experience. What they're good for is to sort of get your name out there. People meet you, you build trust, that kind of thing. So I don't know. It would really depend on the event. But I think that the way I would rank it would be this: the best thing you can do is speak at events, get speaking engagements. Having a stall, it just really depends on the event, the attendees, the delegates, that kind of thing. But even going along as a delegate, if you're going to do that, have a bit of a plan. Look who's exhibiting. Could they be potential partners? Go and talk to them. If you know who might be attending, maybe arrange some meetings around it. So have a bit of a plan. And that can also be really effective as well.
Yeah, and we've got two questions from Adam and Elizabeth, very similar, asking about basically the implications of sending like unsolicited marketing emails, if there's any implications regarding, the Spam Act, what can they do to make sure they don't break the law there?
Mm-hmm. So the Spam Act, the CAN spam in the US, I think it's pretty similar in Australia, Canada. It varies from country to country, so don't take me as a definitive legal source. But for most of them, I think if you make a direct business contact through somebody who's published their details, then that's okay, right? So it's the key thing is that you can't have just sort of found their details somewhat. They've got to be published on a website because basically then they're saying it's okay to contact me. And then the way you contact them is, you can't just say sign them up for something. You just contact them saying, this is what we do. Are you interested? And that's legitimate, right? It's a there has to be a sense that you can do business with people and contact people about business that way. So that's I think that's in most of the spam laws or acts that are out there. That's the kind of stipulation. The details are published on a website, and the way you make contact with them is like relevant business inquiry, which it always would be with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, we've got one about if an accountant or bookkeeper doesn't have much time to map out their prospects and market to them, what are their options?
If they don't have a lot of time to do that, well, I guess it's marketing's a huge part of any business, right? So you need to devote some time to it. the way you can shortcut time is buy someone else's time and then, hiring a professional to do it. So, for example, BizInc, often creates marketing plans for firms. That's one way to do it. But I know that time is a big issue for most accountants and bookkeepers when it comes to marketing. If I was being harsh, I would just say you need to make time to do that, because if you want to grow your business, it's not going to drop in your lap. You have to put some effort into that. And I think, I hope the system that we're talking about in this stream, the 90-day plan, is very streamlined. We're trying to go, okay, let's not try and market to lots of different people. We're going after one prospect, creating that prospect map. I think you could do that. First pass would take you an hour. I don't think you need to go much more than that to do it. And then obviously you've got to create the actions and go and do them. But the actual part of creating that prospect map, I don't think it takes that long. Hopefully if you've picked a prospect you know something about, you should know a lot of that stuff already. So I guess they're your options, is either make time or buy it. So I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer, but I don't know what else I can say, unfortunately.
We've got a question here from Luke. He's asking if you have any recommendations for CRM systems to track leads or build a database.
Yeah, I do actually. I think a really good one is one called ActiveCampaign. So activecampaign.com. Try and remember to send that out as a link afterwards. We did a lot of research into different CRMs, which we thought would be, suitable for accountants and bookkeepers. What I like about ActiveCampaign, the CRM part of it is very, very simple and visual. I don't think you need like a convoluted one like Salesforce, for example. That's much more like an enterprise solution. So ActiveCampaign, very simple sort of lead management system, but it also has email marketing and automation on it. So you've got a lot of powerful features there where you can sort of send campaigns, track what's happening with them, do lead nurturing email sequences. So that's the one I'd look at. It's about $50 a month, but you're getting, in that you're getting email marketing plus CRM as well. Yeah, I mean, look, there's lots of systems. I won't go through lots of different ones. I would just call out that one and say I think that one's perfect.
So Elizabeth just asked, have you heard about a new CRM marketing software they talked about at Xerocon called Beaumont? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I saw that in the presentation. Looked quite interesting. I don't think that's a full CRM system. From what I could see of that, basically sends at the moment just zero messages to through email or to your social media profiles. So yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about that one to say if that's perfect, but I think ActiveCampaign is a much more kind of fully featured system, whereas I think Bohm is just a very simple system for kind of doing automated campaigns, basically with zero content.
Question from Janine, do flyers still work in letterboxes?
Depends which letterboxes. So hopefully what you glean from this is what we're saying is like, don't do scattergun marketing. So, if you go and put flyers through just a load of businesses' doors, probably not. If you go and put, a flyer that's, let's say you choose your ideal prospect as cafes and restaurants, and you really understand their pain points and you come up with a really compelling offer, and then you only go and put it through those letterboxes. Yeah, maybe that definitely could work. I mean, I'd sort of take it one step further. Like, I mean, if it was only, say, cafes and restaurants in my town, I'd try and go and give it to them in person. What always be thinking like, what can you do that has a bit more impact? So yeah, there's nothing that doesn't work. Like I said earlier, it's just there's 1,000 things you can do. What are going to be, given that we've got limited time and resource, what are going to be the top sort of 2 or 3 things that are going to work? And I think flyers are probably going to come down that list most of the time. Certainly, just mailing them out like that.
Has there a
Sorry,
question from
sorry to interrupt. Just another thing you might do with that. Flyers are worth having, right? You can give them to people who come to your office. Like I say, you could go and meet people and give them out. It's another thing that, if you're at a conference or an event, that's a great place to give out flyers. Again, you're not going to get like massive return on investment on them, but that's another way that you could use them. But I'd say probably just doing your sort of very untargeted direct mail like that. No, probably not.
a question from Philip? Has there been any research done on tradies' pain points?
I don't. There probably has. I think the main pain points those people are going to have. They normally have um, not great bookkeeping, kind of, or admin. That sometimes their books are in a lot of a mess. I know that from talking to firms who work with tradies, or when we say tradies, that's an Australian New Zealand thing. If anyone who's not in any of those places, we mean like builders or construction workers, tradespeople. Um, so the pain points would definitely be that cash flow. So often they're getting kind of having to pay out for lots of things up front and then not getting paid on time, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I think they'd be two of the most common ones. I don't know about research, but again, I think that's where something like the prospect map can help, because as well as telling us where our prospects are, um, it's also, as we're putting it together, we're doing research, right? So, you'd be going on, that group I showed you in Australia, 5,000 tradies in there. What are they talking about? You'll see the pain points in there. So we're building up this profile till we really understand those things. But you also might come across, the trade organizations. Well, they're the ones who probably have done that research if it's been done, or could call them. Just pick up the phone. They might tell you to get lost, but they probably won't. And ask them, what are the financial pain points your members have? Maybe that's the way you can start a partnership discussion.
And this question's linked to the one you just answered. Can you give an example of a compelling offer an accountant could provide to a tradesperson that seems to work really well?
Um, it isn't. I don't have an example just off the top of my head, but I think that it's going to vary in different places. What I'd say, like universally, the things that appeal to people are on the emotional level. So, um, the solution to we'd often say like, what's a tradesperson's pain points? And often I'd hear the answer cash flow. Well, that isn't the pain point. The pain point is, um, you know, basically they're not getting paid quick enough, and they have to pay for stuff up front. But what the actual pain point is that keeps them awake at night. That's ruining their personal life. It means that they can't pay themselves. It's bringing a huge amount of stress. So that's the pain point. Now, the compelling thing you can offer is to say, like, we can take that away. Here's some things you can do. Take most of the payment up front. So instead of sort of, take 80% of the payment up front. Try and pay your suppliers slower. Factor some invoices. So that all of those things are the services you offer. That the compelling thing for them is like, oh wow, I'm not going to be so stressed, and that's going to make them a lot happier. So, I think always appeal to emotions, no matter whether it's tradespeople or architects or lawyers. It's always trying to work out something that, is going to make them feel happier. That's generally what's going to have the strongest appeal.
So once you've mapped out the ideal prospect, how do you narrow down the most effective marketing channel when there are alternative channels?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think part of that, and we'll cover some of this stuff next week when we get into the tactics. Part of that is just understanding, which types of marketing work best. So, like I mentioned, like email returns $38 for every dollar spent. So, we know that not only is email really cheap to do and pretty easy, that there's a really good rate of return on that. Whereas, like we mentioned, flyers, not going to be so great. So there's partly that, just a general knowledge of what works and what doesn't, and I'll give you some of that information next week. But then that also varies by different industry sectors, demographics, and that's where really the research will kind of show you some of that stuff. So take, for example, like say architects. I showed you that LinkedIn group of architects where there's like 20,000 people. There'll be architects, so that's on LinkedIn. There'll be architects groups on Facebook. Now, I don't know which one of those is going to work best, but I think you would see like, okay, which have the most people in the groups, which are the most active. So there's a bit of that where you just research it, but some of it you're just going to have to try. Maybe try an advertising campaign, start being active in some of those groups, and that will become more apparent as you do it. Yeah, so I think we'll go through a lot of that in the session next week, but it's going to really depend on what niche you're in, and I think as you build that prospect map, it would probably become quite apparent to you which ones are going to work and which ones, well, it's not that others won't work, but which to prioritize.
And so this one might also be covered in next week's tactics session as well. But Fred's asking, since you've been mentioned speaking at events and running events, it sounds like he needs to create a lot of content. What are your thoughts on that one?
Potentially. I mean, one of the so I mean, events don't need to be complicated, right? So relevant example that we've sort of talked around quite a lot today is tradies or like builders, construction businesses. Firm local to me targets them, and they use Zero a lot. So they do Zero events for tradies, and what do they do in those? Well, they just show them how to use Zero, show it's going to simplify their lives, a few little bits like that, and they have free beer and pies. That's what they do. So it doesn't need to be super complicated. You may want to be pushing more content out if you're doing a lot on social media, but at the same time you could just Facebook's got a really powerful advertising system in there. You could just have be promoting an event, an offer that you have. So you don't necessarily need to have a lot of content, but of course it can help. If you're trying to build a presence, particularly online, that can really help. Speaking engagements, I mean, yeah, you need to create some content for that, but I think some of the best speakers you'll see, they have one presentation, and that's what they do. If you see them a few weeks later, you're going to be getting the same content. So you can sort of repurpose the same stuff often, lots of times.
Yeah, we've just got a couple more questions relating to events. What's the best way to promote them?
Yeah, there's never a best. There's never a best way that you can say works across everything. social media is a great way to do it. You can put an event on Facebook, you can do ads to promote that event. Email is always good. Send people a personal invitation. Like I mentioned, I know another business, not an accounting firm actually, but they market to dentists. They find direct mail works. It could be calling as well. Um, so I don't know. There's different methods for doing it. I mean, I have a natural bias towards online marketing, so I'd always probably be like email, social media, that kind of thing. But even something like flyers might work, if they're targeted, if you're putting them to the right businesses. Generally, what I'd say is with marketing, there's an element where um, it's a combination of things. So you'll always read, it takes like 4, 7, 11, pick a number, but like a number of different touches, before a lead takes interest in you, or a person sort of even notices you. So um, most marketing I see, not just accountants and bookkeepers, like a lot of businesses, they just don't do enough marketing. They kind of feel like, oh, we've sent one email, that's it, or we've done one ad campaign and that will be it. You really have to kind of be persistent, and it's not being pushy. It's just people are really busy, so you got to try and get in front of them, and that's going to like vary from person to person how you can do that. So I think what I'd say is there probably will be something that you do that performs better than the others, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the other things, because sometimes the other things prop up the thing that does really well. We promote a lot of webinars, and we'll do some email, we'll do some social, and I think often it's the combination of those things that gets people coming along.
We've got a question from Rosalind. She's asking a question about ActiveCampaign and MailChimp. Can you just clarify a bit about those two? And is ActiveCampaign an alternative to MailChimp, or do they work together?
No, it would replace MailChimp. It would be an alternative to that. So MailChimp, things like MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, Aweber, Constant Contact, they're basically just email marketing software. So the things you can do with those is send email newsletters, email blasts, what I would call an email blast, where you just send a kind of commercial email, or you can do email automation. So things like, someone downloads an ebook from your site and you can deliver them, 10 emails over 2 weeks or whatever, like automated. That's what those ones do. ActiveCampaign does all of those things, but it has a CRM on the back of it. And that's why, so, I get nothing for promoting those guys. We've just done a lot of research, and I think it's a really good, one marketing tool that you can use to do all the email marketing stuff, which is really important. But it has a CRM, or customer relationship management tool, and so that's where you can turn a lead into like a prospect into a lead. I can't remember their exact terminology, but basically then somebody who you're going to do a sales demo for or have a meeting with. So they go from being just like a contact on your database to somebody you're actually talking to and trying to sell to. And that CRM is really, really simple. Whereas a lot of them, like Salesforce or like Zoho that we use, they take a lot of setting up. And that's not to say they're not really good, but they're potentially overcomplicated for what you need. So ActiveCampaign, I think, has a lot of those features, plus some of the marketing automation stuff that's really smart. It's, like I said, I think it's like $49 a month US for the basic package. That kind of functionality with other systems like Infusionsoft or HubSpot cost you like several $100s a month. So I think it's a pretty good package.
So we've just got one last question that I can see for now. Does advertising in trade journals and magazines work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, again, um, definitely can work. I mean, print advertising has, the impact of that has massively diminished since the rise of the internet, and that's obviously, we've seen a lot of newspapers go out of business, and that's for that reason. The type of advertising that does work is well, I mean, obviously that's what this whole stream is about, is focused marketing. So focused print advertising, yes, I think that can work really well. I think generic adverts don't probably do that well. Whereas if you had something very focused, with a strong offer in it, then that could work really well. So yeah, I think that's something really worth looking at. And often the cost for advertising those publications is not huge compared to, you know, yeah, even local media. So that's definitely one to have a look at. And often those magazines or those trade organizations will have a website or directory that you can pay to be a member of as well.
Yeah, great. So that's all the questions that I can see. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Anthea, and thanks for those questions. Some really good ones in there. Appreciate you all coming along to the session today. We will send out the recording and the slides, hopefully in a couple of hours, if not by tomorrow. And hope to see you in the remaining sessions in Month of Marketing. So yeah, thanks again for coming along, and enjoy the rest of your day.